Hey guys, in today's episode of PharaohCast, we sit down with the owner and creator of RX Muscle, Mr. Dave Palumbo, where he shares with us how he gained over 100 pounds of muscle in just 5 years, as well as some PEDs and some peptide talk. You're going to love this episode. You're not going to want to miss it. Welcome to PharaohCast, the official podcast of Pharaoh Fitness, where we build warriors, kings, and leaders both in and out of the gym. I'm your host, John Martin, founder of Pharaoh Fitness. Every month, we sit down with athletes, coaches, and fitness professionals to dive into their stories, their struggles, and the strategies that shaped their success. Don't forget to subscribe, follow, and like on all social media platforms. Links are in the description. Well, Dave, thank you so much for taking the time to come and join us on our show. We appreciate you so much. I've heard so many good things about you from Tom. And, we have so many questions, so many topics to talk about. I know as you like to say, you're a talker. That's great. I love talking to, guys about, bodybuilding and stuff like that. I can talk for hours. But I just want to say, Dave, you are the CEO and founder of RX Muscle and the owner of Species Nutrition. That is really, really cool because Tom had mentioned he knew you and, wanted to say, hey, would you be interested in interviewing him? And I said, heck yeah. RX Muscle, that's amazing, and I started digging into you and reading more and more about you and a lot of stuff I want to ask you about. But
Sure.
Dave, first off, I just want to ask, RX Muscle, how did you get into this? How did this all start for you?
Oh my God. First of all, if we have any audio or visual glitches, it's Tom's fault because he set me up with this amazing setup. So I have to thank him for that. That's how we met through our mutual friend, John. And as far as getting into bodybuilding, so I was a bodybuilder, obviously. And then at some point, I wasn't a bodybuilder anymore. And while probably the last couple of years of my career, I was going to shows. This was probably like 2001, 2002, 2003. And I was working with a lot of people at this point, and there really wasn't that many coaches at the time, but I was going to all the shows because I knew it was good for business. And the internet wasn't really a big thing. I probably had one of the first websites of all the bodybuilders out there because I was dating a girl at the time who was making websites. It's called Colette. And so she built me a website and showed me how to do websites. And so what I would do is I'd go to these shows and I would take pictures. Whether I was competing or not, I would take pictures at the show. We would take pictures on stage, the athletes, at the weigh-ins and all this stuff, at the after parties, and I would put them on my website in a gallery, like the old photo galleries. And
nice.
People would be flocking to my website after a while because they knew that Dave was at every show and they wanted to see what was going on. And there was no social media. There was nothing. So if you wanted to see what happened at the Junior USA, which no one was at except me, you had to go to my website. So it appeared that I was like everything I was putting up, people were like fixating on like, ooh, let's see what's going on for this past weekend. So it was kind of making me popular in that sense. And then Steve Blackman, who owned Muscular Development magazine at the time, he saw what I was doing and he said, hey, can you do that for us? Because we don't have a website. We're a magazine and we're very popular, obviously. And I was writing for the magazine at this time, a column. He said, would you be interested? Because he knew I was kind of at the end of my bodybuilding career. And he's like, are you going to still compete? I said, well, it was 2004. I said, I think I'm done. He's like, would you want to work for me full time and launch the Muscular Development website? We need a digital format and we want you to do pretty much what you're doing for yourself on our website, and launch that. So I took the job. He paid me a good amount of money to do that. And so I said, all right, well, this is a natural for me. I'm already doing it on mine. I can do it on his. And we launched I think it was the second bodybuilding we called them radio ship podcast back then because there was you couldn't do video.
Right.
Because there was not enough bandwidth, and you had to call into this call center to do a live show. It was a real pain in the neck. It was expensive too. So we were doing it. We did a show called Noble Radio on muscular development, after 3 years of success on their website, we kind of had John Romano and I, who were kind of like running the whole thing, had like a run-in with the owner, and he unbeknownst to us, fired us. So at the time, I had owned the URL RXMuscle.com because I had a hardcore like magazine, print magazine I was putting out like maybe one copy or 2 copies a year, like just drug articles and stuff like that. And it was like a cultish following. We had like 1,000 subscribers, but I put that on hold when I started with Steve. And then when I left, when he fired us, I said, well, I have the URL, John, already. I said, why don't we just do what we were doing for muscle development? So we basically launched RX Muscle like a week later, had a radio show. We went to the Arnold like 2 weeks later, Classic. We covered it, and everyone followed us over there. It was like a big, it was like closing one bar and they came to another bar, so.
Yeah.
And that was in 2009. So we're going on like year 17 now of RX Muscle. And, it's started out as contest coverage. It progressed to what I always wanted to do, which was TV programming.
Yeah.
We were the first like bodybuilding channel to do live stream shows.
Wow.
When no one could do it. It was like we figured it out, and we built a studio, and when I was in New York, and then we kind of moved away from contest coverage. We kind of just did the main shows, and then we just started doing like all this original programming, Iron Debate, Ask Dave, all the shows we do today. And it just, it kept evolving, and then when social media came around, obviously the Instagram account became more of, important, Facebook when it was important. And, that's where it brings us up to today. I just continued to evolve with the technology as it developed, and I made the changes necessary. And, here we are today, still doing it.
That is awesome. So, Dave, is it fair to say you were the first original influencer of the bodybuilding world?
People say that. I think I was at least the most significant. There might have been some people who tried to do it before me, but I guess I was the most successful, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would never say I'm the first, but I was the most successful, who's still doing it too. A lot of guys were in it and disappeared.
Yeah.
I mean, when my main competition, when we launched Muscular Development, was bodybuilding.com, believe it or not.
Oh,
They
wow.
were, when the DeLucas owned it, they were paying big money to have contest coverage and radio programming, and they were our biggest competitor. Then we beat them. They dropped off the map, and then Flex
Yeah.
Online was a competitor of ours. And then when I went to Muscular Development, and when I left Muscular Development, then Muscular Development was my main competition, and I was like, I'm going to put them out. John, I said, John, we're going to put them out of business. And we did. I mean, they're out of business now. So
No, that is.
we outlasted them.
Oh, wow. I mean, that is just incredible. Your story is amazing. You have a lot of accomplishments. I was kind of reading through like your NPC years. I read about, when you started in 1990, you were like 168 pounds. And I read in 5 years, you gained 70 pounds. Wow.
I think I gained 100 pounds of muscle in
Oh my
5 years, to be honest with you.
goodness.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it was, you know what it is? You don't really know what your potential is for something until you actually give it 100%. So I was like a hyper responder to
I bet.
training and eating. And then when I started taking anabolic steroids
Yeah.
for the first time, I was using very small amounts, and I was just like growing like a weed. So obviously I had some predisposition that I never knew about because I never took them. When I was a runner in college, and then when you run long distance, they're basically always telling you, be lighter, be smaller, because you're carrying around less weight when you're running.
Absolutely.
So I was obsessed with getting smaller. And then you switch gears, and I wanted to now do bodybuilding, and who knew I had the potential to get that big? So it was like a consistently putting 20 pounds on a year type of thing. Some years I put more on, some years I put a little less, but it averaged out to about, I think I gained 100 pounds in 5 years. Yeah.
That is incredible. I just finished my bulking phase right now. I am trying to get like you. Tell me, like, at your highest, calorie days, how many calories were you eating a day?
It's like someone once asked me, what was the most money you made in a year or something like that in bodybuilding? And I said, I don't know. I didn't have a count because I didn't want to like jinx myself. I don't even, I was eating 12 times a day for a very good period of time, maybe 2-3 months, where I was waking up twice during the night and making shakes. So I was eating around the clock, and because I had an insane metabolism. It was like the point like where I was trying to see if I can get fat, and I couldn't. Now, granted, I ate very good foods. I wasn't eating, but I was eating I probably was eating 800 to 1,000 grams of carbs a day, I would think. But that's, I mean, the protein was probably like 600, and the fats were like probably like 250, you know. So I was eating an enormous amount of food, and I was eating McDonald's every single day, like just because I couldn't keep my calories up high enough. Yeah. So, but you know, I had a really gifted metabolism. So, you know, anyone else would have done that. They would have been a fat slob. You know? So, but I always tell people the hardest thing to do in bodybuilding is not dieting for the shows. Everyone thinks, oh, it's so hard dieting for the shows because it hurts.
Yeah.
And you're hungry and miserable. Yeah, but anyone can starve. Try eating when you're not hungry.
Oh man, yeah.
That's the hardest.
Yeah. A lot of people say, you know,
that separates
you
the men
can
from the
train
boys.
to failure, but it's hard to eat to failure, you know, like.
But you got to eat beyond failure, because if the time comes up to eat and you're not hungry, you got to get something down. So, you know, I was sucking down shakes, I was blending food and drinking it. I would never miss a meal. I told the story, you know, before, where I actually threw up in my car driving to a client, you know, a kid's house I was going to train. And when I got there, you know, I couldn't even see out the windshield. That's how much I threw up all of it. And when I got there, I made him make me a shake, and I drank a shake because I felt like I was losing protein. I didn't want to, you know, that shake I threw up. I didn't want to like lose the protein I had just consumed.
Yeah. Well, okay, Dave, you have inspired me to start doubling down on my calories for sure, because you're exactly right. It's so hard to force yourself to eat when you're not hungry. That is incredible. And you know, I heard you say, you know, you were like a hyper responder. I mean, can we talk like a little bit about the cycle? Because like currently I'm taking like 600 tests a week, 300 deca. You know, 50 mgs of Anavar a day, you know, and I'm finding that those are good results, but I kind of want to know kind of like, you know, what your cycle was like. What was the perfect cycle that really dialed you in?
I used to tell people, and that I probably still say it to this day, when I hear guys taking Anavar, I'm like, it's like taking Tic Tacs. It's like, they're weak and they're really expensive.
They're
it's
mild.
Like the biggest waste of money for men. Great for women because they don't cause side effects.
Exactly.
They're really a waste of money for men. And they do kill your appetite a little bit. So it's hard to eat with orals. So I never used orals in the off season, and maybe like 3 or 4 weeks of D-ball for like short periods of time.
Sure.
But I try to keep the orals out. And like I said, Anavar is give it to the girls. It's really not strong at all. It doesn't really do very much. I mean, when you first start cycling, you know, and you haven't been doing it very long, anything works.
Right.
That's fine to use it then. But when you get to a point where you're like, I want to put on some serious mass.
Yeah.
Everything's got to be a base of testosterone. And I found, you know, and I've worked with thousands of athletes over the years, the sweet spot seems to be 1,000 milligrams a week, taken in an every other day type of protocol. So whether it be 300 every other day or 250 4 times a week, whatever the case may be, that seems to be the sweet spot. And then mixed with something anabolic, and I like long-acting injectables in the off season. So I always used EQ as one of my favorites. You know, Boldenone. I would do like 2 to 500 milligrams a week.
Yeah.
DECA I really love too, so I would switch around. I would go maybe EQ for 6 weeks. I'd do DECA for 6 weeks at like 500 milligrams or something like that a week.
Yeah.
I would do back then, you know, I would do Trenbolone. You know, usually I would do the Parabolone version of it, which was like the longer acting ester.
Okay, is that like the FNA?
It makes you a little nutty.
Yeah.
And so I used to save that for contest prep. But you know, long acting injectables, Trenanthate. You know, EQ, DECA. I would just switch. I would do 6 weeks, 6 weeks, 6 weeks, 6 weeks, and I would always keep that base of 1,000 milligrams of testosterone, and that seemed to work well. And then I would always use like growth hormone, and I'm a big believer in less is better with GH, like less over a longer period of time. So I would just stay on like 3 IUs a day, I would always take it every day. You know, I wouldn't take it
in the morning
off.
or at night.
I always took it in the morning, and my thought process there was, you're the most catabolic in the morning, meaning the cortisol levels are highest in the morning, and you don't produce GH in the morning. You produce GH after you train. You produce GH at night, you know, when you sleep, when the body's stressed. But in the morning, you just don't produce it. So I'm like, that seems to be the ideal time you would want to take GH when your body's the most catabolic.
Yeah.
Because your body's going to naturally release it those other times of the day.
Yeah,
So,
bridge the gap, absolutely.
So I would take it, I'd wake up in the morning with breakfast. And,
Yeah.
A lot of people get confused because they think that GH should be taken like as if you were trying to stimulate GH. So when does GH get released in your body? Well, it gets released in
At night.
low carb environment because GH and insulin work opposite each other. So if you have high carbs, you have high insulin, which means your GH will be lower.
Yes.
When you have low insulin levels, you have higher GH naturally. But when you're injecting the growth hormone itself, it doesn't matter what the hormonal environment is because you're actually putting growth hormone into the body. So
you're not secreting it from your glands. Yeah.
Right. So I think that's how people get mistaken. They think that, I got to take it at night. That's when my body naturally releases. No, you don't want to take it at night because your body's going to naturally release it at night. Take it when your body doesn't take it.
Yeah, because it's almost like you're doubling up over nothing. Right. Yeah, no, that is very, very cool. And Dave, I hear you are a contest prep coach as well, right?
Yeah.
How many clients do you have right now?
My same answer I gave you before. I don't count because I don't want to jinx myself.
Yeah,
I got you. I have a lot of people. You know what?
Yeah.
What I do is I don't really need to do contest prep with people, and I don't need to do. I work with a lot of regular people just on transformations and diets and stuff like that.
Sure.
And I do it because there's a few reasons. Number one, I like doing it.
Yeah.
I only do what I like, so I wouldn't do it if I didn't like it. Mm-hmm. I make a few bucks from it. I'm not going to complain. Nice, yeah. I do make money from it. It's my spending money. I don't need that money. I have a nutrition company, but I it's spending money.
Yeah.
But it keeps me. The reason I really do it is it keeps me sharp.
Yeah.
And when I say sharp, I mean like I'm in the game. I'm constantly tweaking people's diets. I'm looking at blood work every single day. I probably have double the emails. My clients are, let's say, X amount of emails. Then I get double that just in people asking me questions every day.
Yeah.
Which I answer for free. So
yeah.
People send me blood work. So what it does is I answer an enormous amount of emails every day, but I'm so sharp because of that.
Yeah.
Because I can diagnose any problem. I'm always seeing, issues people have. All the new drugs that are constantly coming on the market. People are using them, asking me their feedback. I'm getting data. I'm accumulating.
Yeah.
I'm seeing patterns emerge. So it keeps me relevant and it keeps me very, very sharp on what's going on. And to me, that right there, that's worth staying involved with that. Otherwise, I would just kind of be in an ivory tower, formulating nutritional supplements, that are great and everything like that. But I want to be I want to be in the trenches too. With these guys. I want to know what's going on. And at this point in my life, I'm still really sharp. Yeah. And I feel like I'm like one of the more knowledgeable people out there. So
absolutely,
if I see BS and I see stupid shit being put out there that I know is going to harm people or is just fooling people, I can do a video and explain the science of why this is wrong or why it's right. And I think people value that information. And so that's part of obviously what I do. And like I said, I do it because I enjoy doing it. And so, I work a lot, but I actually like my job,
Yeah. Dave, I hear you stay on top of kind of like the cutting edge pharmaceuticals, the new drugs that are coming out for like the fitness industry. Yeah. I've heard about Regeneron Pharmaceuticals, and they're coming out with something called Actin A, which is, I guess, some kind of myostatin inhibitor. Do you think with all these GLP-1s and, triple antagonist, retatrutide stuff, do you think with all this modern medication and drugs, do you think going to the gym is just going to be obsolete one day?
No, I don't think so. The stimulus has got to be there, and people always ask me, is this going to replace this drug?
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I said, because bodybuilders just added on. It's another drug to put on the stack. Do you think that people are, if there is let's say some of these myostatin inhibitors work.
Yeah.
I don't think they will, but right now the data is not there. But let's say one does work. Okay. And it increases muscle mass by 20%, which would be significant, right?
Yeah.
Do you think people are not going to use steroids now?
No, they're going to use both.
They can use both, exactly. So they can get even more growth. They're not going to just say, "Oh, let's do it the same way. We'll take the myostatin inhibitor. We'll stop the steroids." No, they're not. They do that. Just like when these fat burners come out, when GLPs come out. GLPs is going to replace clenbuterol and T3.
Yeah.
And GH. I'm like, no, they're not. They're just going to stack it on top.
Just stack it up. Yeah.
And, so look, I think a lot of the peptides out there are overhyped.
Yeah.
I don't think there's that many good ones. The GLP agonists have really good research because they've been developed as drugs by pharmaceutical companies. So they've been tested they work, but they work really by inhibiting appetite. So a lot of people
100%.
fail on their diet because they cheat because they're hungry and they don't
Yeah.
have good willpower. If you're one of these people who never cheats on your diet, you're probably not going to see that much from a GLP-1 agonist.
Right.
And they really shouldn't be taken off season. I know a lot of people think, well, I'll just stay on it all year round so I can stay ripped. The problem is that you don't absorb your food as well because it slows the transit of food through your intestinal tract. So not a good drug to take off season. So it's not one of these like panaceas where you should always be on it. Now, some people take it because it helps their blood sugar control. That's a different story.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good drug. I like the BPC 157. The healing peptides seem to be really good for recovery.
Yeah.
I've used it for, dealing with injuries and stuff like that. And I feel like it works. But I think a lot of these other ones, you get these Sloop and, AOD. You get these, like,
Sloop,
things that,
PP, something. Yeah.
whenever you read that a peptide or any drug for that matter does like more than 3 things, assume it does nothing. Okay. Because
they're weak in all. A jack of all trades, but a master of none.
Yes, it doesn't do anything, that means. Now, the other thing is also, it's funny, I see these growth hormone releasing peptides, sermorelin, hesomorelin, GHRP6 and 2 and hexarelin and CJC. They all do the exact same thing, but yet if you read the list of what they are and what they accomplish, they all have a different effect listed for them.
Yeah.
And which I find interesting because they all just cause GH release from the pituitary gland.
Fat burning, muscle building.
How the growth hormone molecule that's released from the pituitary knows that it's going to only burn visceral fat with this drug, and it's only going to do this with that drug when it's the same growth hormone that's being produced. So,
that's hilarious.
When I see that, that's another thing I see. That's marketing. So you got to be able to weed through the BS and find what really works and what doesn't.
No, that's an excellent point because you're going to have a couple of these peptides that basically stimulate the same gland, and they'll market this one as, ooh, this is the fat burner, ooh, this one's the muscle builder, and you're going to end up buying both.
Well, they say, I saw one of them says it burns visceral fat.
Right.
And this one says it burns abdominal fat. This one burns, fat behind your eyelids.
That's interesting. It can target fat like that,
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that was possible, but no, that's very interesting.
But they're playing on the fact that people don't know what these drugs do. They don't realize that they're all growth hormone releasing peptides. They think that they're specific, fat targeters of certain areas of the body, and that's unfortunately deceptive marketing.
Right. I always get the question, how do I lose belly fat? Right. Just in the belly, it's the same answer. It's a calorie deficit, right? So,
it is. It's if you have more fat in one area, of course, that's going to seem like it's not disappearing, right, as quickly as the other areas because you have more there. So once you get rid of the fat every place else, you're still going to have fat left in the abdominal area until you then mobilize and burn all that fat. But when you lose fat, people don't understand. You're losing it throughout the whole body evenly.
Exactly.
It's just the leaner in the areas that you're leaner, you're going to seem like you get ripped faster there because you don't have to strip away as much body fat. Whereas in the trouble areas, usually in men, it's around the lower love handle area, maybe the lower belly. In women, it's usually around the butt and the thighs. It's just going to take longer in those areas because you have more accumulated fat. But the interesting thing is once you get completely shredded and then you go back into, like, let's say an off-season scenario where you're trying to put some muscle on again, you never really, assuming you continue to eat and train, you don't really get that disproportionate fat distribution again because now you're starting at even. You have no fat anywhere.
Right.
So now when your body puts it back, it's going to put it back evenly over the rest of the body. And so I think that the first diet people do to get really shredded is always the most difficult one, especially if they were overweight when they were younger. Yeah,
no, that is a great point. And I also read that you have an approach to dieting, which they're calling this low carb approach. Now, is that just simply, hey, the days you're not training, eat as low carbs, and then, hey, the days you are training, eat some carbs right before you work out and after you work out? Can you explain a little bit about the low carb approach?
Yeah, I guess everyone calls it the Dave Palumbo ketogenic diet or keto diet, which is interesting. But hold on, the president's calling me.
Yeah,
Donald, I'll call you back later.
Yes.
So he wants some advice, but Yeah. No, you know what? It's funny that you mentioned, days you train versus don't train. I always get this question. People think like you should eat less food on the days you don't train. But the truth of the matter is your body does the most repair work on the days that you don't work out because you're not breaking down muscle so it can devote all of its energies towards repairing muscle. Because let's say if I worked out yesterday and I don't work out today, do you think my body's not using energy to repair muscle tissue, rebuild? I just nailed my body for 3 days in a row in the gym and destroyed it. It's going to take a couple days to heal this. So your food intake should be consistent usually in an off-season scenario. When we diet people for shows, sometimes I'll do rotation diets, on people where I'll have certain days that are no carbs, some days that are low that are moderate carbs, and I might give them even a cheat meal once a week. But in an off-season scenario, you pretty much can figure out what a person needs daily in terms of protein, fat, and carbs, and just give them that.
Yeah.
And if their metabolism starts taking off on them, you feed them a little more. If they start getting a little too, soft, you take back some of the food, or you lower the carbs a little bit. So yeah, I think that this whole idea behind like changing the way you eat on off days versus training days is kind of silly. The truth of the matter is most people don't burn more than 35, 40 grams of carbs in one workout in the gym. So if you go and weight train for an hour, you might be using 35, 40 grams of carbs. That's a very small amount of carbs. Most of the carbs in your body are being used by your brain, actually. Your brain is using that as fuel. Obviously, your body's restoring glycogen stores. Your body has a metabolic rate. It's constantly using carbs for fuel. So the most of your energy is not consumed during the workout. So if you don't train 2 days in a row, you don't have to cut back your food. It's not going to be a big deal. It's not going to make a big difference at all, to be honest.
Yeah.
Now, my approach was that when I saw when I was younger and I was like getting into bodybuilding, I used to eat the no-fat diet. That's what everyone ate back in the late 80s and early 90s.
Yeah.
It was like high protein and carbs. That's it. No fat.
Zero fat.
And I just wasn't, and I found that I was having trouble growing. And told the story a million times about going to McDonald's and for a couple of days in a row, and I put like 5 pounds of muscle on or something like that. And I realized that your body needed fats.
Yes.
And I started studying about fats, and I realized that fats are a non-negotiable. In other words, the body, the essential nutrients for the body are protein and fats.
Yep.
Carbs are just a fuel source. It's like gasoline in your car. You don't need carbs. So I started to re-examine the contest diet, because the contest diet used to be high protein, moderate to low carbs, and no fat. That was the way guys dieted in the 80s and early 90s. And then I realized that's ridiculous because your body has a fat requirement.
Yeah.
And if you don't give it a fat requirement, it goes into this fat hoarding mode where in men it hoards fat around your waist, and in women it hoards it around your butt and hamstrings.
Yeah.
So I started experimenting with women first. My women clients, I started giving them a high protein, moderate fat, low carb diet, where to the point where I put them into ketosis. And all ketosis means is that your brain switches from using glucose as a fuel source to using carbohydrates.
Yeah.
And when it does that, after 72 hours, it'll make that switch. You feel great all the time because you're depending on glucose for fuel for your brain. Your body will just use fat essentially, and it'll turn them into ketones.
Yeah.
And so you don't get cravings, you don't get mood swings. You kind of have you're not really that hungry. You feel better. And so with women, it worked great because women tend to be cheaters on their diet when they get moody.
Yeah.
They don't get moody on a ketogenic diet. Worked great. And what I noticed is that women were losing fat equally from their upper and lower body. Whereas in the past, with that moderate carb, no fat diet, they were having trouble getting the lower body lean. They would have these ripped abs and they'd have like a fat ass, And so I reasoned and realized at this point that fats, were necessary, and that the body can sense if there's enough fat coming in. And if it doesn't sense enough, it hoards fat. And so it's like you're fighting your body's propensity to want to lose weight. Your body doesn't want to lose weight because it thinks it's fat deprived. Yep. So it holds on to the areas where, in women, like I said, estrogen makes you hold it in your legs, and in men it's around the waist. So the ketogenic diet started working really well, so well for women that I started using it on guys. And I was using it on everyone just to experiment to see how it worked, and everyone was getting really good results from it. But some people had really super fast metabolisms, and I realized they needed some carbs too, because carbs spare the protein and fats, that your body will use for building and repairing muscle. So I kind of evolved into a cyclical, what I call a cyclical ketogenic diet, meaning that some days we do high protein, vegetables and moderate carbs, and still not high carbs, moderate carbs.
Right.
And then other days I do just protein and fat. And I might start off with 2 or 3 days of carbs and then 1 day of just fats, protein and fats. And it could evolve all the way up to the point where they're on a ketogenic diet, or maybe they're doing 1 day of 1 day. It depends on the person and their metabolic rate. I always say I want to ideally keep people eating as much food as they possibly can and still lose body fat. So there's no reason to pull food if you don't have to, but if they're not losing weight, then you got to make some changes.
Yeah, absolutely. So I heard that you train both men and women. Have you ever had any female clients who come to you and say, hey, this isn't really working. I have PCOS or some kind of, disorder with my, my hormones. And that's the reason why I'm not losing weight, or my body just swells up so much. That's the reason why I'm not losing weight. What would you tell them? Any tips like, hey, it's not really that. It's, the calorie deficit really will work,
Well, the good thing about me is that, and a lot of my clients know this, is I went to medical school for 3 years. So I know all about polycystic ovarian disease. And I know all the disease. I know everything that a doctor would know.
Nice.
I just didn't do clinicals, because I hated it. Hated working in a hospital. And I didn't like the whole, treat every symptom with a drug. I like to do more preventative medicine. So when people come to me with these things, I know what their issues are. With polycystic ovarian, they're insulin resistant. So those women do great on a ketogenic diet because they're not eating carbs. Because their problem when you have that syndrome is that you don't metabolize carbs well and you don't produce insulin properly. So they do great on a ketogenic diet. And listen, I'm like Sherlock Holmes. I've been doing this so long. You cannot fool me. I will find out what you are doing wrong if you're not losing weight. Because it's never my fault. It's always your fault, because either they're using condiments that have sugars in them. They think that hot sauce it's because it says 0, everything on it. It doesn't have any, but it's made from red peppers. It's got carbs in it.
Dave, I think what John really wanted to ask you is if they've ever blamed their zodiac sign for why.
I'm an Aquarius. That's why. No.
He's just, I'm an Aquarius, so you can't say. No, but the point is that, so people give me excuses, but what I do is I tell them, all right, I want you to do a food diary for me. I want you to write down every morsel of food and liquid that goes into your mouth on a daily basis, every condiment you use. I want to know how you cook for your foods. And I always diagnose the problem. One girl was chewing 3 packs of gum a day. And because she's like, it's sugar free. I said, yeah, but they all have, each piece has 2 grams of carbs. You're eating like 40 grams of carbs from gum. She's like, oh, I didn't know. Other girls are like deep frying their meals in oil. They thinking that the oil wasn't going to get absorbed into the chicken. Another girl wasn't, she would lay out I remember I was living with this girl, Colette, when I was dating her, and she was like, I come home and I'm like, are you weighing your food? She's like, oh, I can eye it. I said, that looks like you're supposed to be eating like 4 ounces. That looks like 12 ounces. She's like, it's not 12 ounces. It's 4 ounces. I said, how about you give me $100 for every ounce over 4 it is. And she waited. It was 12 ounces. I have a good eye. So, portion size is important as well. So, you can't fool me. And usually when people cheat on their diet, they do tell me. But there are people that are not cheaters, but just use stuff they shouldn't be using, condiments. And they lie on these bottles of everything. And you have to know how to read labels. Because just because it says, look, if you have a butter spray, that's obviously some sort of oil, and it says, I can't believe it's not butter, and it says 0 calories, 0 fat, 0 everything. Right. But the stuff is oil. So so that oil is a fat, and that a fat has 10 calories per gram. So the spray is so small that no one uses one spray. They spray the whole bottle on there, and then they wind up eating like 20, 30 grams of fat extra or more, maybe 100 grams. And then they wonder why they're not losing weight. So there's so many pitfalls. And once again, a good coach, and there's 2 things that make a good coach. Number 1 is knowledge. And I teach a course called The Secrets of Becoming a Diet Guru. And if you want to learn knowledge, that's the best, greatest course you'll ever take. It's 8 hours. It's online. You can just watch it. You don't even have to do it with me live. Excellent. And the second component is experience. So, you can't teach someone experience. You have to just do it. You can read 10 books about how to play tennis. Until you swing a racket, you're not a tennis player, right? So, you got to, but there are coaches out there that have been coaching for 15 years that don't have a lot of knowledge either. So both
Right.
situations are not good. You want to educate yourself and you want to have experience. And the only way you get experience is go out there and coach people, even if you do it for free for the first, 6 months or so.
Yeah.
Get experience, and the more experience you get, you'll start being able to diagnose what people are doing wrong.
Yeah.
A good coach is not someone who takes someone from first place to first place. A good coach is someone who could take someone who wasn't even on the map and bring them up the ranks and get them, to be a superstar. And I've done that with a lot of people. Now, I don't need to brag about myself. My record speaks for itself. But the point is that, you got to have knowledge and you got to have experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Dave, just like that, we are pretty much out of time. I know you got to run. You got some stuff to take care of. But, Dave, thank you so much for coming on and taking the time to speak with us. It's been awesome. It's great to meet you. We absolutely love this. We'll have to do this again in the future.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And so, thanks for inviting me. And Tom, I love you, man. You gave me a great setup here, and you're always available to answer my questions. So I really appreciate that.
Happy to help, and thanks for coming on. And John goes to like 12 different gyms. So if you ever want to send him a couple of Species shirts or something, man, he'll
Shoot me your address. We'll send you a little care package.
Yeah, all right, appreciate it.
He'll make you famous here in Nashville.
Yeah, we'll blow you up.
Thank you.
All right, Dave.
All righty. Thank you, Dave.
All right.